This man, half of his face has melted, 6 thin legs have grown on his back, he looks just like a spider. He lets out a low growl. The woman is scared and screams. The man's name is Quinton. He works as a security guard at a biochemistry company. His life is dull. Every day is the same. He enjoys reading comics in his spare time, and his favorite is the superhero Spider-Man. Quinton often goes to buy comic books and related merchandise. He fantasizes about becoming a hero like Spider-Man to save the world. Quinton has a crush on a woman named Stephanie. She lives next door. He often creates accidental encounters, but they only exchange casual greetings like neighbors. He's too afraid to initiate further conversation. One day, Quinton gathers courage to greet Stephanie, and they go downstairs together. They talk about recent events, including a series of murders they read about in the newspaper. Quinton expresses, if he were a police officer, he would definitely apprehend the killer. In reality, his actual job is to watch the surveillance cameras. The most dangerous thing he's encountered was telling visiting children not to touch the equipment. Stephanie listens to Quinton's words. She doesn't say anything, but she doesn't mind either. At this moment, 2 thugs approach them. They mock Stephanie. Quinton becomes somewhat timid, losing his previous confidence. In the end, Stephanie pulls him away. Quinton feels embarrassed. He hurriedly bids farewell to his crush. He goes to the comic book store. He sees the newly released Spider-Man toys. The previous embarrassment is swept away. He quickly puts them in his bag, and then goes to work. After finishing his regular patrol, Quinton returns to his office, and starts reading comics. The biochemistry company they work for usually doesn't have much going on. At most, they receive student groups for visits. Recently, the company is conducting a spider experiment. They extract a red liquid from a spider, and inject it into another spider. Combining the powers of the 2 spiders will become invincible. Quinton finds this fascinating. He jokes with his partner, if injected into a person, would they become Spider-Man? Both of them share a laugh. In the evening, Quinton goes on his final patrol. His partner stays in the office watching the surveillance. He notices a criminal who has taken the experiment personnel hostage. He immediately activates the alarm, grabs a pepper spray, and rushes to the rescue. Quinton returns from patrol, and coincidentally sees his partner being captured by the criminal on the surveillance footage. He rushes to the rescue. The police also arrive at the laboratory. One of the police officers rushes into the room. Quinton grabs the other police officer. Just as he was about to say something, a fierce gunfight breaks out in the room. The police outside are temporarily unable to enter. Quinton gets scared. He covers his ears and freezes. After the gunfire subsides, he enters the room. He discovers that everyone has been shot and killed. The obstructed police officer is angry. He blames Quinton for everything, and starts punching and kicking him. He curses Quinton for his cowardice, and causing so many deaths. The company's leadership fires Quinton because of the incident. Quinton crouches in a corner. He notices a journalist who came to report on the scene accidentally steps on a spider. Surprisingly, the spider, like a spring, its flattened body quickly recovers to its original state. Quinton realizes that this is the spider injected with the red liquid in the laboratory. He has a bold idea. While everyone else is gone, he walks up to the container of liquid. Thinking about his own cowardice and incompetence, he grabs the syringe and injects himself. He fantasizes that he might possess superpowers like Spider-Man. Quinton feels dizzy and disoriented. He drags his heavy body back home. He feels restless and overheated all over. Immediately, he takes out all the ice cubes from the refrigerator and puts them in the bathtub. He lies down in the bathtub. Only then does he start to feel slightly better. Stephanie reads about the incident at the biochemistry company from the newspaper. She remembers Quinton working there, so she goes to visit. She knocks on the door a few times, but there's no response. She tries to open the door and discovers that it's not locked. She calls out Quinton's name. As she enters the house, the room is pitch black. With the help of faint light, Stephanie sees the room in a state of disarray. There are leftover ice cubes in the bathtub. Everything seems so eerie. Suddenly, Quinton appears from behind. Stephanie was startled. She notices that Quinton is injured, so she willingly stays to take care of him. Stephanie discovers there's a large needle mark on his arm. Being a nurse, she suspects Quinton has a bad habit. He quickly explains that it's a needle puncture from work. Seeing Quinton's nervousness, Stephanie chooses to believe him. She helps him take care of the wound. Quinton receives the care of a goddess, and he's very happy. However, at this moment, the effects of the red liquid haven't manifested yet. The next day, Quinton has a big appetite. He always feels unsatisfied. Veins start bulging near the needle mark. He feels that his body is undergoing changes. Quinton goes out to find food to fill his stomach. When he returns, he hears sounds of a fight from upstairs. He discovers that a man is bullying Stephanie. His crush is knocked unconscious on the ground. Quinton pushes the thug away. The person is sent flying several meters away. Quinton realizes that his strength has increased. To avoid exposing his superpowers, he calls the police and escapes through a window. When the police arrive at the scene, they find the man dead. Quinton returns from downstairs. He comforts the frightened Stephanie. Stephanie tells him that a hero saved her from the man's clutches. Quinton is excited when he returns home. He has finally become the superhero of his dreams, able to protect his crush. All the changes are just the beginning. Due to the effects of the red liquid, Quinton's hearing becomes extremely sensitive. He can't sleep well at night. He takes out a comic book, intending to learn some superpowers from Spider-Man, to see if it could work for him too. He imitates what he sees in the comics. He installs surveillance outside the door, planning to observe if any more bad people show up, to handle them promptly. By the way, pay attention to Stephanie. One day, he sees Stephanie moving things. He volunteers to help. The previous thug sees the two of them, and walks over to provoke them. Quinton is no longer the coward he used to be. He grabs the thug's face. He warns the guy to not show up again. Stephanie is attracted by Quinton's courage. Their relationship becomes better and better. In the evening, Quinton can no longer eat regular bread. He eats some meat instead. He imitates the superheroes and falls asleep on a hammock. Suddenly, he opens his eyes. Quinton discovers that his body is floating in midair. It turns out, he gained the ability to shoot webs from his chest in his dream, and suspended himself. Quinton starts practicing his web shooting skills. When he webs up his pet dog, he unexpectedly feels the urge to eat the dog. This startles him. He quickly runs away. He goes to a convenience store to buy some food. He encounters a man bullying a female cashier. Quinton plays the hero and saves her. He performs a shoulder throw on the man. Surprisingly, the cashier blames Quinton for injuring her boyfriend, and calls the police. Quinton doesn't want to get caught. He spits out webs and webs up the cashier. He hides first. The police arrive at the scene, and find the cashier, while Quinton descends from above, and knocks out the police officers. The next day, Stephanie finds Quinton's pet dog at the door. There's a note on it, requesting her help to take care of it. Stephanie gets worried about Quinton, and goes to look for him. She knocks on the door a few times. She asks Quinton how he's doing. He responds that he's feeling unwell, and wants to be alone at home. However, Quinton's face has developed a spider-like mouth. Now we can understand why he's been staying indoors. The medication has caused a physical transformation. Quinton doesn't want Stephanie to see him in this state. He tentatively asks if they can still go out together in the future. The girl happily agrees. This makes Quinton feel relieved. On the other side, the police investigate at the convenience store. They discover that the man has turned into a corpse, and the colleague who responded the previous day is also missing. Everything seems incredibly bizarre. Quinton returns to his human appearance. While the hunger sensation grows stronger, the food at home is not enough to satisfy him. He spots a thug downstairs. He lures the person upstairs. He webs him up, and drains him of his life force. It turns out, the previous appearance of corpses were all created by Quinton. The police receive frequent reports. Through investigation, they believe it's the work of the same murderer, and find a large amount of spider silk at the crime scenes. He takes the silk to the laboratory for analysis. They detect traces of a pharmaceutical company's drugs. He contacts the company's executive to inquire about the situation. He learns that the company is conducting an experiment by combining genes from different spiders into one. During a previous robbery incident, a vial of the reagent went missing. After hearing this, the detective recalls the spider webs found at the scenes, and asks tentatively, what would happen if the reagent were injected into a human? The executive says there have been no human trials, so they are unsure of the outcome. The detective starts suspecting Quinton, who was fired by the company. He pays a visit to question him. At this moment, Quinton's face mutates again. He's afraid to open the door to outsiders. The detective lingers nearby. He attempts to find some evidence. He goes to the basement. He's surprised to discover an abundance of spider webs appears in areas that should have been clean. He cautiously opens the door to investigate. He finds the missing police officers and others. They are suspended in the air, wrapped in spider webs, resembling prey caught in a spider's web. In the evening, Stephanie returns home. While opening the door, she catches a glimpse of a figure at the neighboring door. She thinks it's Quinton. She calls out the person's name. The figure flew in front of her. The camera zoomed in for a close-up. Half of the face seemed corroded. Several small eyes grew on it. It let out a screech. 6 spider-like legs extended from its back. This terrified Stephanie, and she screamed continuously. The detective downstairs heard the sound, and hurriedly ran upstairs. When he reached the corridor, there was no one there. Following the direction of the sound, he entered Quinton's room. He saw Stephanie trapped in a giant spider web. A spider-like monster appeared before him. It muttered some words. After Quinton mutated into a spider, he could no longer communicate properly. In order to free himself from the spider's body, he pointed to his chest, signaling the detective to shoot. Upon seeing a trace of humanity remaining in Quinton, the detective hesitated. To provoke the detective into shooting, Quinton flew towards Stephanie. In a state of panic, the detective shot to protect Stephanie. Quinton died in the arms of his crush. The movie ended there. In order to become stronger, the protagonist injected spider genes, but ended up making a fatal mistake. It had a touch of realism. Unlike in comics, where becoming a superhero is easy, it serves as a reminder to be cautious about mutations. If you enjoy my channel, please consider subscribing.